All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started, guys. We actually we built this session with like an hour and a half of your time, but we really don't have to take up that much time. So it'll be a chance for you to have some dialogue. You are able to come off mute if you want to use the raise your hand feature. I currently am not seeing that. Normally I can navigate the raise your hand as well. Yep, I can see it now. So I'll be able, I know we typically have support, but I'm usually the person helping moderate for others. So I gotta learn how to help people moderate for me. But you can use the raise your hand feature. You can come off mute. We do want your questions answered. This session is super informal. We basically just, in some of our learnings from last year, we wanted to at least open up a session that was available to talk about how to maximize the conference experience, maybe talk about a few networking tips, a little bit of personal branding discussions, so you can maximize these next few days. For those that don't know, there's wonderful opportunities that are going to come out of this if you take advantage. I got word that someone was actually getting set up for an interview for an internship already this morning because of their response and participation inside of the chat inside of Hoover's messaging. And I got a message because I reached out to someone. They're like, "Oh, no, I'm getting ready to set up an interview for this person." And all I did was just post a message inside of the Hoover app. And so I just want you guys to know that, yes, you are attending a conference and there's going to be some information shared. But really what this is about is what happens after the conference is over, and how are you going to leverage these next 3 days from an information standpoint, but also from a networking and building out your brand and your professional networking opportunities, either for your academic career or for your professional career. So any questions, comments, or thoughts before we start today? And you can feel free to come off mute at any point, or you can just use the raise your hand feature.
Just real quick, just for everybody, this session is being recorded and will be made available at a later date by next Wednesday, if you want to go back through this again and watch it again. Additionally, before you leave today, I will be sending out the post-survey questionnaire, and if y'all could fill that out, that really helps us. So this session, like Brian said, is scheduled for an hour and 30 minutes. But just keep on with all your active dialogue, and we'll just use whatever time that we need. So yep. Brian, feel free to go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. And feel free at any point. Nick is acting as a host today, but Nick comes extremely experienced and qualified to be providing a lot of insight and intel into how to leverage these sessions and networking events and conferences. So I will actually be leaning on him to definitely give his feedback, because he's closer to this experience. I mean, he's going through exactly what you guys are going through. And so we definitely want to have his voice be heard as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with a little bit of personal branding, right? So we always talk about 7 seconds to make a first impression. Well, it's kind of unique now that we're in this virtual space and we have this virtual conference. Your first impression is going to be virtually, and typically either through some chat feature or through a form of messaging. The other opportunity for that first impression is for when you're speaking or asking questions or adding commentary to some of these sessions. So say, for instance, someone in the group today was to have a question or a comment. Well, what are you going to do before you actually make your comment or before you ask that question? is very critical. And that the answer to that question is, you're going to let us know who you are. So the very first tip I want to give you is, as you're in these sessions where you actually get to have your voice heard, make sure that you introduce who you are, what your name, what university you're coming from, or what institution you work for, maybe even a little bit about your background. You have a really quick opportunity for us to let us know who you are. And by doing so, we can start figuring out ways to support you once we know more about you. One of the things that I noticed that students fail to do is they may have great questions, great comments, but if I don't know who you are and what you're studying, what some of your goals are and ambitions are, as a person who's connected to many people, I may not know how to support you and help you because I didn't know who you were. What I will say is like, oh, that was a great comment. Oh, that was great feedback. But without knowing who you are and what your desires are, I don't know how to help you. And also, I want you to be very comfortable over the next few days asking for help. A student today asked about an internship opportunity. That student has an interview set up today. So that's really critical over the next few days. My mom would always have a comment that said, closed mouths don't get fed. And like I said earlier, we want our voices to be heard. And so with us being virtual, we have to be very creative and very assertive in the small little pockets of opportunity that we have. Same thing in the virtual space. When you are entering into a chat, when you're entering into a direct messaging connection with someone, make sure you let them know exactly who you are, what you're representing. If there's a need that you have, put that in there, and not just the question that you may have or the comment, but put all that in there so we know more about who you are. Any thoughts or feedback on that? Has that been something that you've been doing? Is that something you're definitely going to start doing now? I would love your feedback. All right, we'll keep progressing here. So what is a brand, right? And so as we talk about the conference, you're going to get a chance to start learning more about others, right? You'll see speakers, different speakers have their brand. If you think about our keynote speaker that we had this morning, some of the words that come to mind is data, data science, analytics. Those are the things that naturally come to your head when you think about Dr. Washington and the session that she had this morning. So I ask yourself, what's differentiating you from others? What is differentiating you from the competition? And so that's what I want you to start thinking about as you're introducing yourself to people and you're starting to build that network. What is your brand? What are you representing? You hear me say a few times today, what you represent. And I'm using that word very specifically because that is what a person is going to remember about you, right? And we really don't want to waste the interactions that we have with people, especially on a virtual space where you typically are getting these interactions in very small little snippets, and we want to make sure that we maximize those moments. And so you want to leave a session, if someone is talking to you through the chat box or through direct messaging or just some communication through a session, you want them leaving knowing who you are, what your brand represents, and where you're taking that brand and how they could be of service to you or how you could be of service to them. And we do have story after story of students who have maybe gone to direct connection or direct messaging someone here, or who's gone to the exhibitor fair and now was able to get scholarships and admittance into graduate studies and internships as well. All right, so we start thinking about the conference and leveraging the opportunities, I just wanted to show you this stat here. On average, every corporate job opening attracts 250 resumes, but only 4 to 6 of these people will be called for an interview, and only one of those will be offered the job. And as we start thinking about global competition, it is very heavy. As you start thinking about getting into graduate studies, some of these fields can be very competitive. And so differentiating yourself could be, oh, you know, I have a good GPA. Differentiating yourself could be, oh, I have these internship and summer research experiences. But another differentiating factor is what's taking place at this conference this week. And that's actually getting to know someone and actually having someone that knows you and believes in you and wants to support you. We talk about having mentors. That's one aspect of it. That's great. But what about if you have a sponsor? And a sponsor is different than a mentor. I always say a sponsor is who opens the door, and the mentor is the person that can tell you where the door is. And so having someone who actually is sponsoring you and believing that you can do this and actually has the power or the authority to make certain things happen is another differentiating factor for you. You're going to have those type of people at the conference this week. So this is a wonderful opportunity to find who they are, build LinkedIn connections with people. This is a really good opportunity for you. And I'll just pause for a quick moment. Any questions, thoughts, comments, or feedback thus far?
I have a question.
Absolutely.
What if like you don't know what you want to do, but like you're still kind of interested in getting a sponsor? Because I keep changing my mind as like a first year student, and I'm like, this doesn't help me at all, like job wise.
Yeah. Well, first off, I would say it is a great challenge. And who was that speaking?
Oh, sorry, my name's Kion.
All right, so let's start over with that. So
Hello.
you don't have to do the whole question over, but I do want you to give your introduction.
Hello, my name's Kion. I'm an 18-year-old Black student from Sinclair Community College in like Dayton, Ohio.
Awesome. So great question. I do think it's a challenge, and it can be stressful as well to feel like you have to know all of this. So, you know, being so young and so early into trying to find yourself, right? And so what I highly recommend is these experiences that you're saying that you're getting, just use them for that. They're experiences, right? You're on a quest. So let's think about this journey, these next 2 to 3 years as just a quest. And you're trying to find, you know, what you're passionate about, what you want to do, what type of career you want to have, what are your interests. And so if you're getting opportunities to do research, you're getting opportunities to do internships, etc., just look at them as that. If you end up having a great experience and you're like, oh man, I really love this, that's awesome. If you have a bad experience and you're like, I never want to do this, that's even better, because you now know what you don't want to waste your time in. And you also want to make sure that you're selecting the right degree choice, so you don't put all of those years into a degree and it's not something you even wanted to use. So don't feel rushed right now. At some point, you do need to kind of dial it in and be a little bit more focused, but at where you are, don't feel like you have to have that, you know, defined right now. And I would like, if there's anybody on the line that has kind of gone through that, and maybe you're on the other side of it, please feel free to step up and share. This is a kind of a joint learning and dialogue session today.
Hi, Brian. This is Carmel Thomas from Eaton Corporation. I'd like to add to that topic.
Awesome, please do.
Yeah, for the young lady that was just speaking, I think one of the things that's helped me, you know, as you're finding your way, definitely expose yourself to as many opportunities as possible. Look at, you know, if there's certain unique opportunities going on campus where you can kind of be a fly on the wall if you're a little shyer and a little unsure and kind of observe. But for me, an experience I had when I was getting my first internship is I actually went to a table just because they were giving away really cool free stuff. And I listened to all the other students who seemed like they knew what they were talking about. I took a brochure and kind of read through and found something that I thought interested me and picked that for that time being, just to kind of, get a footing. And then as I went, I could then navigate and say, yeah, this doesn't work for me. This works for me. And so I would just recommend, pick a direction, listen, be a fly on the wall whenever you can, and don't be afraid to immerse yourself. And if you change and pivot, then change and pivot, but definitely go for those opportunities.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that feedback. Does that help at all?
It does. Thank you both so much.
No problem. And what I also will say is, join as many sessions as you can over the next few days. Feel free to find someone that may interest you, and just have that conversation about their journey. I think one of the things that you will find out about many of us is that many of us that have already kind of graduated or are kind of at least beyond the undergraduate studies phase or in our careers, et cetera, we all pivoted at some point. We all had some form of adjustment, some form of pivot. And that's why I like to use the word quest. You are on a quest. And so just don't feel pressured, but definitely leverage every opportunity to help kind of shape and refine that direction for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I interrupt real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so my name is Klasky. I'm a sophomore at UW Milwaukee. I think one thing I would say is, just keep going to career fairs. Like, just say, hey, I'm new here. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm just here to explore my options. And the more you connect, and in the future, if they see you again, they'll recognize you and they'll be like, oh, hey, have you found your interest yet? And once you do that, they actually look into who you are and what you want to do.
Awesome. That's absolutely amazing feedback. Definitely leverage every career fair. I know many students who don't take advantage of the career fairs right there on their campus. Even if they're virtually these days, take advantage of those career fairs virtually. And in most career fairs, it's a combination of both employers and those who are trying to get you to go into graduate studies as well. All right, so just wanted to highlight a few reasons why the brand actually mattered. It speaks for you, it promotes you, it validates you, it shows your credibility, displays your professionalism, can project your creativity, may show your influence, and humanizes you. When we talk about, getting to know each other, I think that last one is really important because we can come across as so formal that we forget to be a human. And when you're in a laboratory, when you're, at your internships, et cetera, or even just in your academic journey, you're going to work with people, right? You will be around some other people at some point. And so just people understanding who you are, and understanding who you are at your core, not just all your talents and skills, is just as important as promoting those talents and skills. So it's a healthy balance between all of these. And I know in the world of STEM, we have a larger percentage of us who may be on that introvert side. And so this may not be the natural thing to kind of promote yourself and speak about yourself. But I am asking us that at the appropriate times to kind of tap into that space and feel more comfortable speaking about yourself, because it's going to be needed, because I'm not a mind reader, right? So I don't know how to serve you and support you without knowing who you are, what you represent, and kind of the display of all the things that I have over here on the screen. Does anybody want to kind of share maybe how they've gone through that journey of maybe feeling a little shy about speaking about themselves, but then they knew it was important, and now it's something that they're able to do without feeling so nervous about it?
Yeah, I can actually go first.
Absolutely.
So I had already introduced myself. But I'll just say it again. I'm Plasky. So I think in the first year, you'll realize that like you could take it pretty easy, and you feel like you wouldn't need to really connect, but your advisors, they're gonna keep saying, hey, you need to go to these career fairs, and I want you to go. And once you go to career fairs, you go, you're like, oh, I don't have a resume. Where's my letter of rec? What about my cover letter? I don't have any of that. Where can I get that? And then you start to realize, like I actually have to connect with my professors, my advisors more so that I can ask them if they could write that for me. And so that's how I was able to like step up my game. Like, hey, I need to connect with my professors because I am a mechanical engineer major and I didn't have no one that could write me a letter of rec for these companies. But I kept being honest with these companies, like, hey, I don't have no technical skills. I'm in the process of learning, but if you give me an opportunity, I'll show you that I can learn before my summer intern with you guys. And from there, I just keep connecting with them. I prefer like, hey, like I don't understand this concept. It shows them like, hey, you have great, you actually want to learn this. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that feedback. Would anyone else wanted to share about that? And then I'll just kind of repeat what the question was, was there anyone who maybe was a little shy, a little more on the introvert side, and you didn't feel as comfortable kind of projecting yourself and highlighting your skills and talents and kind of that self-promotion, but you've learned how to do it when needed, and you're a little bit more comfortable with that space now, because this is not an easy thing for us, but I learned early on the importance of it and how to use it when needed. I didn't have to be so extroverted, and it didn't have to come off as braggadocious, but I knew that at certain times I needed to promote myself and to talk about my talents and skills, because that was part of letting people know what my brand was, what I represented, and what my talents and skills were. So that was the kind of the premise of the question.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Is that Jacob?
Yes, sir. This is Jacob Adams. I'm a student at Valdosta State University. I'm a second-year student. And to answer your question, I have to say when I was going through my first year, I didn't really talk too much. And I remember going to one of my teachers' her office hours. And she was telling me like, why don't you talk in class? You come in here, you have so many questions, you just talk in class. And I was like, I don't really like talking and doing that. So she recommended me going to Toastmasters. I'm not sure if you know what that is. It's like a speaking group. So I'm in that now. And I'm doing that, and it's kind of helping me with my communications. But I've only been in there for, this semester? So it's only been 2 months. So I'm still learning.
No, that's a really good. Oh, sorry about that, Jacob. I was just saying that was a really good call out on the Toastmasters. And even if we didn't use Toastmasters, say we just talked about public speaking. It's a skill that you all are going to need. At some point, you have to tap into that public speaking space. And so if it's formal training, informal training, I highly recommend you do what Jacob is doing, which is addressing it, choosing some form of some type of way to address that skill, and you want to enhance that skill. And I actually think that for those of you who are not doing poster presentations, I highly recommend that you listen. And if you are seeing someone who seems to be presenting their research in a very good way, and you kind of like the way they're going about it, maybe you reach out to them and you send a chat over to them, a direct message them, and say, how did you get that type of confidence, or how did you learn how to project like that? And you never know, you may find out that they say, hey, I didn't start this way, but this is what got me here. So I think we should leverage, and that's how why we created this particular session this year, because we typically were in person, and then last year we had a virtual session and we didn't have this. And so we decided to close a gap of kind of teaching these little tactics and these tips to help close those gaps for you guys. So I highly recommend doing that. Anyone else wanted to share before we moved on?
Sorry, Kion has another question.
Awesome.
Next semester, I have either the option of taking interpersonal communications or effective public speaking.
Mhm.
And I'm a very like nervous, anxious person. Which would you recommend for me to take? Because I know I need to work on that, obviously, if I want to get anywhere, but like.
I can't tell you which one to do, but I will say this: if you are nervous, right, and you get a little concerned with having to do that public speaking, then maybe you could lean towards the public speaking, because I do think that building that confidence in the public speaking space should enhance the interpersonal communications as well, because it's a confidence booster. But I don't think it's a bad choice either way. I think the number one thing that you should leave out of there with is what you said at the beginning, which was confidence. So just make sure that you know that you're not going into it to try to be the world's greatest speaker, right? There's going to be people in your speaking classes that are maybe focused on speaking, right? And they want to have that be the leading factor in what they do. You are there because you're trying to build the confidence and enhance a skill, but you're not wanting that to be your leading factor, right? And so I just want to make sure that whatever you choose, make sure you leave that semester with greater confidence. So that would be my feedback to you. I don't think you can go wrong either way, but the public speaking, if it's a confidence issue, if you're able to do well in that, you're definitely going to increase your confidence.
I also wanted to add something.
Absolutely.
My name is Nina Green. I'm a sophomore at the University of Cincinnati on the pre-med track. And I just wanted to say, like, I'm an introvert, and I think one of the biggest things that helped me with public speaking was just kind of like trying to find those opportunities for myself and just putting myself out there. And it was hard at first, but I think like when I finally got the chance to do it, and I've gotten a lot more comfortable with public speaking. And also not just doing that, but preparing yourself. Like, for instance, if I'm doing a presentation, I'm doing one of the poster presentations, I would take a lot of time to just go over it constantly just to make sure that, you know, like I have it in the back of my mind and it's not something that I get stumped on. So I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Nina. And a piece of advice that I have for those, especially on your poster presentations or just any public presentations that you're doing, the audience doesn't know what you're supposed to say. Always know that. We get so nervous because we're like, oh, I was supposed to say this, but I didn't say it, or I left this out. The audience doesn't know that. And so as long as when you're speaking, you know how to stay calm, cool, and collected, similar to what our keynote had to do today when that alarm went off, that's how you can kind of stay smooth and kind of have that calmness on the inside. What ends up happening on the outside with stumbling and bumbling and like being confused and that kind of being seen is because on the inside, that's the way you're feeling, and you're not able to control not showing it outwardly. And so the better you can just stay calm, cool, collected on the inside and just say, hey, I'll just keep it moving. The audience didn't know what I was supposed to say anyway. It will allow you to feel less stressed and stop worrying about what other people are thinking about what you're saying. They don't know what you're supposed to say anyway. Does that help anybody? Because you guys are going to be doing for those that are doing research and posters, you're going to be presenting a lot over the next few years. All right.
So I will just chime in on something that specifically with posters. One thing that I've noticed with students whenever they get nervous is a couple of things. One, they tend to speed up. And then that just helps the potential for bumbling through, and just, we know you've practiced it, you know what you want to say. Getting back to what Brian said, your audience doesn't know what you were supposed to say. That's fine. Just stay relaxed, and keep going forward. The second thing is the vocabulary that you use at any particular speaking event should be tailored to your specific audience. One thing, especially again with posters, it's easy to use terminology that you think is commonplace, but remember what your audience is. If you have people who are not either in your STEM field or even not in science at all, they need to also be able to understand your presentation and get something out of that. That's the sign of a really effective speaker.
That's a really good call out, Nick. I move and I shift as a speaker between, and as a professional, between STEM and academia and STEM and career and kind of corporate America space. And those are two different languages, or if I, three different languages. And I, as a communicator and a speaker, have to know who my audience is and making sure that I'm using the right words. And so that's a really, really good item to let our students know today, that when you are in front of someone, make sure you're speaking that language, so then you can be heard. And then all of this branding, this promotion, this content, your research, etc., is going to be heard even better because you're speaking it in that particular language. For some of you, like, you may go home, and if you talked about what you've been researching to a parent or to a friend who has no clue what this is, I'm pretty sure they're like, what's going on? What are you talking about? And they probably want to change the topic, but it's just because of that's not that language that they may be speaking. So really, really good point. All right. All right. So I want to talk about LinkedIn just very quickly. LinkedIn, 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn regularly, and 77% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find candidates. Now, with that said, we're in the world of academia, where we may be talking about, okay, well, how do I leverage this from a grad school and going to get my PhD and postdocs and all of this? Well, they're there too, right? And so I want to make sure that we're not missing out on a great opportunity. Our keynote speaker this morning, as she was speaking, I said, oh, let me see her LinkedIn profile. That is exactly what I did this morning, right? Because it was a person I hadn't met before. And I said, oh, let me see. And she has a lot of connections and shows all of her various experiences. And what may happen is you may go to someone's LinkedIn, or someone may come to your LinkedIn, and you may find some form of common interest, or, oh, I studied at that university too, or, hey, I'm from that place. And so what could happen is, before you have an interaction with that person, before you have a dialogue with them, you may learn kind of a common factor that could help enhance that initial dialogue. So it's not just some random, hey, come talk to me type of thing, right? And so I just want us to make sure that we're leveraging this platform, that we at least have a profile. I like to call LinkedIn my online resume, and not my, physical resume. And I like to use the platform. It's not something that I use every single day of my life, but when I need it, I want to make sure that I'm leveraging it. It's free. There are some things you can pay for certain upgrades, but for what a student needs right now, just the free platform and then taking the time to build an appropriate profile will be greatly beneficial to both your academic and professional career. Is there anyone on here that has any feedback about their use of LinkedIn or their lack thereof? And hey, how do I get started? Just would love your feedback on this topic. And you may say, well, Brian, how does this tie into the conference? Well, you're going to meet a lot of people, right? And they're going to have a little bit of feedback on them, maybe on their profile at the conference, but you also could go to their LinkedIn, where they may have more information, and then you can learn more about them and how you can either be of service to them, or they can be of service to you in the future. And I did see someone come off mute.
Hello.
Liliana, is that you?
Oh,
Oh,
no, this is Zaria
Zariah?
Patrick.
Okay, Zariah, gotcha.
I'm a sophomore chemistry major at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and I have a LinkedIn, but I have no idea how to use it. I've made a few connections with people from school, but I don't know exactly what to do with my LinkedIn because I don't. I mean, I could go to like career services and ask them, how do I make connections, more connections on LinkedIn? How do I, brand myself properly on LinkedIn? But that was just a little feedback from me because I don't know what I'm doing on there.
No, Zariah, correct? Zariah?
Zaria,
Zaria, sorry. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly.
that's fine.
So I would say, just a couple simple tips, and I would love feedback from others as well. So you're a student. What are you studying again?
Chemistry.
Chemistry. Is that, as of now, is that kind of the path that you feel like you want to take in the future? Like maybe chemistry graduate studies, maybe PhD in chemistry? Is that a potential at least?
Absolutely.
Okay, so why not take LinkedIn and allow that to be the catalyst for sharing your chemistry journey and sharing, you're posting that, your institution of higher learning, what your background is, all that good stuff. But then like, as we're talking about what you're posting and what you're sharing and articles and maybe even what you're writing, because you can't write your own articles with LinkedIn now. It's so simple. You are going to take us through a chemistry journey. And so if someone goes to your LinkedIn, it's like, oh, let me see about her. She's interested in our graduate program. And they go to your LinkedIn and they see that over the last few years, like you just been chemistry. And then you ever so often you sprinkle in something a little personal maybe. And then chemistry, right? And it's like, wow, like she's really serious about this. And that one little wow moment, Zariah, could be the difference between someone wanting you in their institution or not, or wanting to sponsor you or not, or wanting to recommend you to someone else or not. It could be that simple for you. And it's something that you already have interest in. So it's not even like you're having to work hard or go outside of your comfort zone because you're talking about chemistry. That's just a recommendation that I have for people, especially in the academic space. And I'm learning that a lot of people in academia, they use Twitter the same way. They literally just talk about their interest, and then they build this little small community or a large community around that. But that would be a small piece of advice for kind of just how to get started leveraging it. And then I would love if anybody else on the line wants to share any feedback on it. And I know a couple of you in the group are really good with LinkedIn, so I know some of you personally. Anyone else wants to share before we move forward on the leveraging of the LinkedIn platform?
I can share a little bit.
Awesome.
So my name is Emilio. I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I study biology, and I looking for the pre-med track also. And the way that I started with LinkedIn was just look at other people that are my age and trying to do things that I'm trying to do and see what they're doing correctly. Like I formatted my LinkedIn based off of another student's, and I felt like they were able to put forward what they wanted to say, what they wanted to do in a way that was just like very easy to understand. I have made a lot of connections just like through friends that are stepping into the professional world and seeing how they do it. So allowing your peers and professionals that are surrounding you to really guide the way that you want to use the platform is really helpful and has been for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that feedback.
I have
And-
another.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, I know there was a young lady earlier who said she wasn't quite sure what she wanted to do. And I think LinkedIn is a great way to kind of find yourself as well. One of the things I've leveraged it for is to figure out, you know, what's the next move for me. You know, maybe I can make some connections or see what other people are doing, kind of like the guy before me just said, see what they're doing. And, you know, is this something that I'd be interested in? And what are my gaps? You know, maybe if I want to be a applications engineer, and go out in the field, maybe I need to, you know, maybe look at some people who are doing that today and figure out, you know, what kind of companies are they working for? You know, the things that they're doing, are those really what I want to do? And I use it that way, right? To kind of map out, kind of also, I use the phrase be a fly on the wall, but you can kind of stealthily figure out what it is you want to do and how you want to move and what steps will get you to your ultimate career goals.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that feedback, Carmel. All right, we'll keep going here. So just wanted to share this. This is from one of our old networking kind of strategies. I just wanted to toss this out here about from a kind of brand management standpoint, leveraging LinkedIn. People can have personal websites. You know, it's a lot different these days than it used to be from a website perspective. It is so easy to acquire and create a website. It's not even something that you have to like constantly always be managing, but it is a separator, a differentiator, if you say that. And then you can like update it as needed, and it can progress over time as you progress in your academic journey. And then also, I'm sorry for that, the business cards, right? Business cards are not as popular these days as they used to be. And I think, Carmel, you recently said you found, you met someone with a virtual business card that was very unique. Do you mind elaborating on that and kind of what that looked like?
Sure. You know, I honestly don't remember the platform, but they essentially had a link that was specifically their business card, and it outlined similar to a LinkedIn page, but it just outlined so professionally, you know, what their interests were, what they excelled at. This was for someone in real estate, but I had never seen that. And they had examples similar to what we do for our experiences as far as like what their specialties are, and highlighting kind of, you know, what areas they can support that others can't. So it really stood out as I was looking to interview people that I would give my business to, right? And this was a different application, but it was just great to see how they presented themselves. And in a lot of ways, LinkedIn is kind of how we do that. But to your point, that virtual business card, I don't have to worry about putting it in my wallet or losing it, right? I can just shoot it over via text or pass it along. It was actually passed along to me in networking that this person was very professional and had a great presence. And so this could be very powerful.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. And then social media platforms, you know, outside of just LinkedIn, are always great opportunities. Like I said, I've listened and saw recently about how STEM professionals, even on the faculty side, are leveraging Twitter to share their STEM journeys and kind of build those STEM communities as well. And then once things aren't virtual, you know, just your presence and that person-to-person interaction that we hope to have at our conference next year. So let's talk networking in the new normal from the standpoint of things being so virtual and how to leverage it during the session that we have the next few days. You know, this is what things used to be, right? You got the human connection, and now it's just computers, tablets, cell phones with these formal connections. And so we got to be very strategic in leveraging this, right? You guys are awesome with these tools in our personal life, right? And so now we're just saying, hey, if we're that good with utilizing the virtual space personally, and it like my children already know how to use devices, and they're 14 months and 5 years old, right? Let's also use them professionally and from a networking standpoint. So just almost just transferring a skill that we already know that you have, but just putting it in a place that that you may not have been so familiar with. So let's just talk about a quick game plan for Whova usage. So who, I don't know if you could do a quick raise your hand. Who has, this is their first time on the Whova app? And just do a quick raise your hand if this is your first time on the app, Whova. Awesome, awesome. Thanks so much for your feedback there. So with that being said, there are some things that are upgraded inside of Whova that we didn't have last year. And so we can talk about a few of those. I'm gonna come out of, I'm gonna do a stop share real quick so then I can go over the Whova. And I just wanted to talk about one of the awesome things. It's actually on my next slide, but I'll talk about it now, which is in the attendee section. There's 4 categories in the attendee section. One just says all, and you're able to see every person, and they go in alphabetical order. And it's really cool. You're able to see if they're a speaker, view their profile. You can make sure that your profile is updated so they can learn more about you. You can go to recommended, and in the recommended tab inside of attendees, it'll let you know how many people are connected with the things that you put in your particular profile. So if you say, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, or I'm from, Chicago, Illinois, inside of your profile, and 5 other people say they're from Chicago, then in your map section, it's going to say Chicago, 5 people. And then you can click that and it'll let you know who those other people are that are from Chicago, any places you've worked, any schools you've gone to. It will, you can also put interest, and it'll allow you now to connect with them based off of that. So companies I've worked for, it lets me know how many people from those companies, who they are. It shows me their profile, and I can connect with them. So that's in the recommended section. And then you can bookmark people and come back to them later. I highly recommend you use that. And then categories allows for you to slowly start to kind of get a little bit more granular with the people. And so they'll segregate them by categories. So examples are speakers, examples are planning committee, undergraduate students, moderators, grad students, and you slowly can now look at the people in a smaller bite-sized chunk. And that's all of that is just in that attendee section of the app. And I highly, highly recommend we use it. On the messaging side, here is when you can do direct messaging people. And I highly recommend that once you find out you need it. And then on the community side, you can just use this one to engage, find different interests, build some camaraderie, but just definitely leverage all of these different angles that Whova now has with this platform. Once you download that app, I don't know exactly the length of time, but I do know that you will be able for a period of time to still come back to this conference and see those profiles and different things from the attendees. So if a month from now, you're like, oh man, I forgot that one person, I think you're still gonna be able to come back. I forgot what that time frame is before it doesn't become available. Maybe it doesn't go away, I'm not sure, but I know for sure I had a conference and like 6 months later, I was able to go back to my Whova app and find out who was in attendance to be able to connect with that person. And I'll go back to the share screen. All right. We kind of talked about a couple of those, and then interaction during sessions. You guys have done a great job today. We talked about a few tips about introducing yourself. I highly recommend that you don't just sit back and be silent. And if there's something that you want to say, make sure that you say it, have that confidence. And then post-conference engagement is really critical, similar to what I was just talking about. Want to make sure that after this is over, it's not just a, hey, this was a great event, this was great. No, what are you doing? Who are you connecting with? Who are you staying connected with? What resource are you leveraging? That is where really the magic happens, is what takes place once this over. Well, this conference is over. That's where the biggest leverage comes in, and it becomes not just talking about it, but now you're doing something about it. And then just staying connected with the LSMRCE and LSAMP community. We do sessions throughout the year. We have an entire summer series. So even in the summer where we may have students like, hey, I don't have much going on, or I didn't intern or whatever, we have 10 weeks worth of speaker series every summer. And then we do sessions throughout the year. We communicate internships. We communicate research opportunities, multiple internships opportunities. And we just want you to stay connected with us because there's so many wonderful things that our students are offered. And we don't always, and just being very transparent with you, we don't always have students take advantage of these opportunities and they say, oh, there was nothing out there for me. That's not true. We present a lot of opportunities that go unleveraged, which means that's money that we're leaving on the table. All right, and then just a few conference tips. So if you're chatting, if you're direct messaging, the front page concept is very important. So just think that if what you're saying was put on the front page of the newspaper or some website, would you feel proud about that? And so that's just a concept I want you to think about to make sure we stay professional throughout this conference. We just talked about the recommended section inside of Hoover. That's a wonderful item. And then just the attendee session and section for me is just an awesome section for those that want to do some networking. Learn about that next session that you're going to go to in advance, especially the time and how to get logged in. And then just have some fun with some of the games and interactions that we have. We have some cool prizes and some fun games. They're very simple, not too complicated, but feel free to have some fun with it over the next few days. So that's kind of, there's my contact information, so I can stay on point with the branding and you know, being a man of my word about what I shared earlier. And then I'll go back to leaving, kind of going between these two slides as we answer any questions that you may have. It looks like Carmel, you have your hand up.
Oh, sorry, that my hand, I guess I didn't put it down from earlier. No questions.
Sorry. Any
Brian,
questions, comments, feedback?
we do have a question in the Q&A section of the Wahoo app. The question is, how do you prioritize what sessions to attend?
Ooh, that's a great question. Because it looks like right after this one, you guys have you'll get challenged. I think between 2 and 3, you got the various sessions to choose from. I would say one, if someone has written a profile on their session, go ahead and read that. So you'll have some time because our session is going to end early. So you'll have some time to start reading through those if they have any profiles on them. So you'll maybe learn a little bit more. We like to call them, in the academic world, we'll call that an abstract. So see what those are. And then if that's not enough, then you're going to just look at the topic and see, okay, what is this topic? You know, is this something of interest to me? Does it just sound cool? I think that's something that I've seen at conferences that students made mistakes on. They go to the workshop that sounds cool because the title got them, instead of going to the workshop that maybe didn't sound as cool, but the topic was really what they needed. The other kind of cheat code that you can do for selecting is if the abstract doesn't provide clarity, then you can see who the presenter is, their name, and you can go to that presenter's profile. You can go to that presenter's LinkedIn page and learn more about that and say, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. I'll go to this session. And even if the topic isn't 100% like I'm sold on that, I might be sold on that person. And now I have an opportunity to interact with that person. So those are just kind of some thinking kind of strategies that I would go through on selecting. And I would like any other bits of advice for my seasoned conference attendee people, if you have advice on selecting sessions as well. And a great question. It's a very simple question and a very complicated one as well.
So I'll just say, at least on the Wahova app and how we have it set up right now, they do have general descriptors of like what category just broadly like a particular session would fit into. And so you can look at that and see. So like I know, like for this one here, so it's like deepening STEM identity, growth mindset for undergraduate students, professional networking. So like that's like the simple descriptors about this one. But for one of the other ones next, it's for graduate students. So if you're thinking about going to graduate school relatively soon, or you are a graduate student, that might be something to look at for you rather than a different one. So quick descriptors always will help, but like Brian said, to actually go through if they have like a program abstract and kind of go through and see whether or not that would interest you. And then for future conferences, they will always have some sort of description about what the session is going to be about. And so you can kind of plan out your day and just be like, okay, so I know I can make this meeting at this time, this meeting at this time, and then you have a full day's worth of interaction and programming to do.
Awesome, awesome. So I have no more presentation for you today, but just did want to make sure that you had any questions, comments, or concerns closed out before we ended our session today. So feel free to raise your hand, come off mute. Would love to make sure that you feel confident that you can leverage these next couple of days. Because for some people, it could be life-changing, right? You may get internship opportunities, you may get research opportunities, you may actually get a connection to get admitted into graduate studies. And I love to tell the story of 2015 or 16, we had a pre-conference session where we talked about websites and branding. And I told them, build a website. This one young lady, she actually made a website the week before the conference. And I think it was either Stanford or UCLA. And they were exhibitors at the booth at the conference like you guys are gonna have tomorrow. And she presented herself, showed her website, and she was accepted into their graduate program. Now, did the website do it? Probably not, right? But it was just part of her package and part of her branding. And she came back later and said, man, I'm so happy that you told me to build that website. I got into this grad school. I'm like, the website didn't get you in, I promise you. But it didn't hurt, right? And it was just those small differentiators, and it could just come across as letting somebody know that you're taking it serious. So I'm not asking everybody to go make a website, but having either LinkedIn, business cards, something beyond just the basic resume that lets you know that you're taking this serious and that they can learn a little bit more about you. So just always like to share that story because our students, we have a lot of success stories, right? And you're going to see a lot of alumni. They don't always tell you, but a lot of the people who are supporting us as hosts, a lot of people who will be at the networking session, we're all alumni. I'm an alumni, right? I forgot to tell you guys that I'm LSAMP alumni. My wife is LSAMP alumni. My wife was a Fermilab high school student with the Fermilab program, right? So a lot of us are all part of this journey. And so I don't want you guys to ever feel that what you're going through, and I think this is the most important, what you're going through, you're not the only one to ever go through that. What you're feeling, you're not the first one to feel that. And it's tough because when you're going through it and when you're, being challenged, it feels lonely and it feels secluded and nobody understands. Well, we all do, I promise you. And if I don't understand, I can get you connected with someone who does. So just make sure that we're being transparent. Like when I have the breakfast talk tomorrow, it's going to be more of a session to where we can have these type of dialogues, where we can talk about our problems and our issues, because our goal is to help try to close those gaps for you. But just in general, make sure that you're not being silent and let your voice be heard over the next few days. So I'll toss it out there one more time for any questions, comments, or feedback. All right. We'll definitely leverage these few minutes here that we've given back to you to help do that research on the sessions for this afternoon. And then I do think Nick has a couple housekeeping items for you.
Right. So again, thank you on behalf of Brian, myself, and everybody here. Thank you for attending. I do have the post session survey link in the chat. So we'll leave that up for a little bit, but if you could please fill that out, that is very helpful for us. And then overall, just, I guess one final tidbit from me is also one thing that I think goes underrated in a lot of conferences in terms of networking is networking with each other in terms of the actual attendees, all of the students, because right now you are where you're at, you're in Dayton, Ohio, you're in Cincinnati, but you never know where each other will end up. And you don't know if you'll see each other again, because it's very possible that you could. So one of the things that I like to say to everybody is whenever I met someone at my research networking experience in Georgia, 2014, I met a lot of good contacts there. I still keep in contact with some of them, and one of them is now in the lab of Jennifer Doudna, who has done all of the CRISPR research. And so now there's like an interesting little caveat there. And so he has helped me come up with ideas from his perspective that I normally would not have thought about based on my experience. And we've just talked about some science and everything. So really interact with each other as well. And that's a really good way to get a lot out of a conference as well.
Yeah, and another way to kind of leverage what Nick just said is the poster sessions. So for those that are not presenting, don't use that as an opportunity to just go and take a nap, right? Try to, and it's a lot easier when we're in person because you just kind of walk in the room and there's so much going on. But virtually, make sure you try to learn more about who's presenting and what are you presenting. And what you may find out is you may have similar interest, and that is the start of a long-lasting partnership. And you guys may be doing research together in the future and getting funding together in the future. And as you heard our keynote this morning, she said that I believe the professor that her professor now is her colleague, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, her professor is now her colleague, and they do work together. And so I just think that I really like what Nick said. Each of you are going to go do some amazing things in the future. Why not build that bond and the connection now? And as you look at some of the amazing kind of big tech companies and people who've done great success in that space, a lot of them had like college buddies, high school friends, just those connections from when they were in their 20s, right? And then all of a sudden, they start working on something together. So definitely leverage that. And I think it goes forgotten about a lot, about how powerful it is to be in connection with the person next to you, because it's hard for you as a college student to see where you guys are going to be, right? You don't see that. You see that professor or you see that person doing grad school at Minton's, but you don't see that the person next to you might be the next one of those as well. So really good feedback there, Nick. And just wanted to say thank you guys for your time. We'll be together again later this afternoon with the networking session, and then I'll be kind of emceeing the rest of the conference. So I look forward to staying connected with you guys over the next few days. And thank you so much. And Nick, is the survey in the chat feature?
It is in the survey of the Zoom chat. And then I
chat.
am also going to put it in the Wahova chat as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Don't forget to do the surveys, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Nick.
No problem. Thank you, Brian.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care.